The gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Capuano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How you doing, Mr. Secretary? Happy St. Patty's Day.
And to you.
Mr. Secretary, I got one issue I want to pick a bone with you on, but before we do, I want to clear up a few very important things. Did you ever read Secretary Clinton's regular mail?
No.
Did you check it before it came in, see who was writing her and what was in there?
I mean, only if she needed me to look at something.
So after the fact. Yeah. Did you tuck her in at night?
I certainly did not.
Did you make sure she brushed her teeth?
Do you really want me to answer these questions?
I just, I mean, if we're going to ask ridiculous questions, I just figure we may as well go to the logical extreme of absurdity. Let me ask you a different issue. Well, we'll get off that one. I think I kind of made the point.
You made your point.
Have 47 members of Congress of either branch, because I wouldn't want to knock one branch over the other, have they ever written to the FSB to say, don't talk to you?
I'm not aware of it, but
have 47 members of Congress ever written to the international insurance supervisors and said, don't talk to the Secretary of Treasury?
Yeah, I'm not aware of it.
Have they ever written to ISIS and said, we can't believe the Secretary of the Treasury is trying to do something to contain you?
And not to my knowledge.
Not to mine either. But if they do, would you let us know? Because I'd like to know that, members of Congress think that you shouldn't be doing your job by talking to people on an international basis. But I do want to talk to you about one issue, and that's Fannie and Freddie. And I know we've had this discussion briefly before, and I hope that you expect it to come up. Since Fannie and Freddie went into receivership, the federal government, they borrowed $187.5 billion from the taxpayers. Very important, very difficult, very risky. But since that time, they've paid back $225.5 billion. That's about a $40 billion profit, give or take 20% rate of return. Could you tell me what you've done with the $40 billion that you've gotten back beyond what the taxpayers lent?
Well, Congressman, as you know, it becomes part of federal receipts.
General fund.
And general fund. But,
so that it goes in the general fund, and we, Congress, and you, the administration, the normal course of events, get to spend it any way we want.
As a practical matter, it's part of what's helped us reduce our overall deficit.
I understand. I mean, more receipts is fine. I think the other side has problems with more receipts, not me. But I get that. But basically, it's come into the general fund for all intents and purposes, and we've spent it on whatever we wanted, which is fine. That's not the issue. I'm not chasing that. That's a different debate. But that $40 billion, that's only the beginning. What has Fannie and Freddie been allowed to pay down on the $187 billion that they originally borrowed?
So, Congrasman, I think that the idea that they're kind of out of the woods.
I didn't say that. I'm asking what's happening with the money.
They're still a federal guarantee behind Fannie.
I understand that, which I actually like and appreciate. Some of my colleagues don't, but I do.
And the exposure the taxpayers have until there's housing finance reform and we move to a system.
Fair enough. How much has Fannie and Freddie? What kind of capital reserve have Fannie and Freddie been able to build up?
They have not built up a capital reserve
because we're sweeping all the money out and putting it into the general fund and spending it.
But until we move to a system beyond the current one, taxpayers are ultimately responsible.
But that's been the case since day one. That's been the case since the 1930s. Taxpayers were on the hook at every time. And they had a blip, and the taxpayers stepped in, as we had promised we would do for 80 years, and now we've been paid back. The question I have is, when are we going to stop using this as a piggy bank?
Well,
I know that we have to have a debate about reforming Fannie and Freddie. But all right, if that's the case, what's the administration's proposal on how to move forward?
Look, I think that the important question is how do you move forward on housing finance reform? We have very much wanted to move forward. We think it's an important priority.
Have you submitted a proposal that I haven't seen?
Well, we work closely in the development of proposals, particularly on the Senate side, and have been engaged in trying to think through with others how to
But those aren't moving forward, as we clearly both know.
I don't disagree that progress has been slow and limited.
If that's the case, how long are you going to keep holding Fannie and Freddie hostage? Because the reason I ask, it's not about Fannie and Freddie. It's about homeowners. By holding them hostage, number one, you're not allowing Fannie and Freddie to capitalize. Number two, you're not allowing any funds to be left over for the Housing Trust Fund. And number three is you're basically submitting homeowners to an additional tax for the purposes of general revenue, which doesn't sound fair to me. General revenue should be paid for by the general people.
I don't agree with that analysis in terms of the impact on homeowners. I do think that there is a very serious question that as long as Fannie and Freddie are in conservatorship,
there is a public exposure. Because you won't let them out.
Well,
you won't let them pay off their debt.
There is, I think, the need for housing finance reform in order to move beyond.
If one of my
the current
constituents
state
would have loaned me money and not allow me to pay that back, what would you call that?
The time of the gentleman has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Duffy, chairman of the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you, Mr. Liu. Just to follow up on Mr. Capuano's questions, the international insurance advisors are not seeking nuclear weapons, are they? And in regard to making sure that Hillary Clinton brushes her teeth, you're not the tooth fairy, correct? But in regard to emails, you were the Undersecretary of State for the management portion, right?
Well, I was Deputy Secretary of State. The Undersecretary of State for Management was another position.
And maybe we can put up an organizational chart of the Secretary of the Department of State. You actually reported directly to Hillary Clinton. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it's fair to say that there's many modes of communication, but one of them with the Secretary was via email, right?
Correct.
And is your testimony today that you never noticed that she wasn't sending email or you were corresponding with her via a .gov account? That you never realized that it was a Clinton email account?
Congressman, I can answer the same question again.
I'd like that.
Yeah, my general mode of communication with the Secretary was meetings and phone calls. I did email with her from time to time. I don't remember exactly how it showed up.
I want to be very patient, but I would ask. I mean, President Obama has indicated this is going to be one of the most open and transparent governments we've ever seen. And as one of his representatives, I would ask that you actually respond to the question, which is, did you ever notice that you were corresponding with Secretary Clinton on an account that was not a .gov account?
Congressman, I always...
Did you ever notice that, yes or no?
I always made sure I was corresponding with the right person.
That's not listen, you're very good at this, not answering questions, and I appreciate the way you tap dance, but I think everyone in the room understands my question, and you're just not answering it. Did you know that you were corresponding with Secretary Clinton on an account that was not a .gov account? Yes or no?
Congressman, I don't remember giving it a lot of thought at the time.
That's not whether you gave it a lot of thought or not is not my question. The question is, did you know you were corresponding with her on an email that was
It's a long time ago.
So you're saying you don't remember? Is that your testimony?
I'm just telling you.
Is it your testimony that you don't remember?
I'm just telling you that when I emailed with people, I always make sure.
Is it fair to say you don't want to answer my question, Mr. Secretary? Because you know the question I'm asking, and you're refusing to answer it. So I guess what I'm assuming is you knew you were corresponding with her on an account that was a non-official account. And I understand you don't want to lie to Congress, and I appreciate that, and you don't want to be part of a news story. I appreciate that, so you don't want to answer my question. But I think all of us here understand that you're saying, I knew that it was a non-official account. I just don't want to tell you here. Is that right?
Look, Congressman, I've always endeavored to do my business, in an open way.
And again, non-responsive. But let me ask you, do you use for official business your official account, or have you ever, let me strike that, have you ever used a non-official account for official business?
I use my official email for official business, and I follow all the
have you ever used a non-government account for official business?
The only time I ever would use my personal account is if for some reason I couldn't use my...
Have you ever used a non-government account for official government business?
On occasion, consistent with common practice, if I can't use official email, I have, but it's not at all a regular occurrence.
Let me, and I think this is an important issue. Let me give you a quote, and let me see if you can tell me who gave this one. Any unauthorized disclosure of classified information is a violation of our law and compromises our national security, and that our national defense requires that sensitive information be maintained in confidence to protect our citizens, our democratic institutions, and our homeland. Protecting information critical to our national security is the responsibility of each individual who is granted access to classified information. Do you know who gave that quote?
I do not know who gave that quote, but you're going to tell me.
I'm going to tell you it was you. You gave that quote. That was yours. And I would hope that we have laws in place that apply to everyone in government not just a few in government.
To be clear, classified information can't be communicated over a normal official email either. It has to be on a classified system.
Do you suspect that the Hillary Clinton email, clintonemail.com, is as secure as the .gov email system?
Look, there are others who are more expert looking at that.
But your opinion?
Yeah.
It's possible?
I'm not going to comment on something I don't really have the knowledge to comment.
Being an operations guy, the COO, on the exit form that every State Department employee is to sign, were you pretty certain that everyone who exited the State Department would sign that appropriate documentation?
I would assume it would be normal practice.
Okay. I yield back.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The chair now